Hello everyone and welcome back to the Tent of Abraham. I'm Tamir Kreisman from Jerusalem, Israel, and we continue with Pirkei de Rabbi Eliezer. Chapter 12, The Woman. With love abounding did the Holy One, blessed be He, love the first man, inasmuch as He created him in pure locality, in the place of the temple, and He brought him into His palace. As it is said, and the Lord God took the man and put him into the Garden of Eden to work it and to keep or guard it. Genesis 2:15. Just by reading both accounts of Genesis, you can tell the difference between how God carefully created and formed Adam. As we have learned, there is really only one neshama, one soul in the world. That is Adam's soul. God created one. All people today are fragments of Adam. There's a whole understanding though about like what is a Jewish soul. Everyone has a soul, but when you convert, your soul is then complete, assuming you are part of Israel and not. In other words, the only way for you to actually prove and receive this soul is if you do become part of Israel. That means you always were, and if you don't, that just means that you weren't. So I want you to think about this for a moment. When God thought up Adam, the idea of Adam, He created and He formed him. He breathed the breath of life into him. When God did this, way back when, He saw you. Personally, you. So with all your screw-ups and with all your shortcomings, with all your hang-ups and the chips on your shoulder, God saw you through Adam, and you are part of the reason that Adam was created. So you are no accident. You are very much on purpose. And therefore, if you are on purpose, therefore you have purpose. This purpose is your responsibility to discover and pursue. Excuse me. The story of Adam, it's your story. It's all our story. So listen up. And what work was there in the garden that he was told to work and to guard it? You may think that there was work to do in the garden. Perhaps you will say to trim the vineyards, plow the fields, and cast out the stones from the ground, to thresh and to till. But did not all the trees grow up of their own accord? Great question, Pirkei de Rabbi Eliezer. These are excellent points, right? Okay, if Adam was supposed to do work in the traditional sense, meaning what we know today as work, let's say to work in the garden or something, then how come God told him that he would have to work the ground after he sinned as a punishment? Did he have to water the garden? Did Adam have to water the garden? We learned this. Look what Pirkei de Rabbi Eliezer says. Perhaps thou wilt say, there was some work to be done in the Garden of Eden, such as to water the garden. But did not a river flow through and issue forth from Eden and water the garden, as it is said in Genesis 2:10? And a river flowed out of Eden to water the garden. And from there it separated and became 4 heads. So, no, Adam didn't even water the garden. And what is the meaning of to work it or work in it or keep or guard it? Le'ovda u'leshomra. What is that very clearly at the very center of the garden? Right? We know this. This means being occupied with the word. That's the tree of life, right? Tree of life, Torah. Text says. This means being occupied with the words of Torah and keeping all its commandments, as it is said in Genesis 3:24. And he drove the man out, vaygaresh et ha'adam, and he stationed from the east of the garden the cherubim and the blade of the revolving sword, lahav hacherev hamitapechet, the double-edged sword that constantly spins, to guard, lishmor, et haderech el etz hachaim, to guard the way to the tree of life. But the tree of life signifies the Torah, as it is said, it is a tree of life to them that lay hold upon it. Well, rather, lamachazikim ba, as we discuss this verse plenty of times, it is a tree of life to those who grasp onto it, who grasp onto the tree of life. It should be every Jew. And if not, you have Talmidei Chachamim, and if not, everybody is meaning the wise, scholarly students. And if not, then you have the rest of us, like myself, who are trying as much as possible to grasp on any which way that we can. And if you are not a Jew, and if you don't do that, then what do? It says, the continuation of the verse, V'tomchea meushar, those who support anyone grabbing on, i.e. learning, teaching Torah, partakes in that. So we already know this verse, and if not, you should know it. Proverbs 3:18. So if you're asking yourself, what Torah? Clearly the Torah was not given to Adam until 2,448 years later, meaning after the exile from the garden. So what Torah are we talking about? You forget what we have been discussing. Everything is Torah, and Torah is everything. They're all one and the same. You're confusing things by your own understanding and parameters of time and space as you know it. Work in the garden. Oh yeah, he tilled the ground. No, he didn't. He watered the plants. No, he didn't. He didn't do any work in the garden. So what is this work? So again, you forget what's how you think and the way I'm trying to teach you how to think. I mean, if you forget, I'm assuming. I apologize. So the Torah is made up of two types of commands. Aseh velo ta'aseh. Thou shall and thou shall not, right? Thou shall honor thy father and thy mother. That would be on the right side. And thou shall not kill, steal, covet, and so on, right? Aseh velo ta'aseh. God gave Adam one command that encompassed them both. Thou shall guard or keep the garden by not eating from the tree of knowledge of good and evil. By not doing this, you are actually doing that. That is the root of all the Torah. And then obviously from there on, we got the 10 Commandments. 10 Commandments, half do's, half don't do's. And the entire Torah is broken up into do's and don't do's. This is how the mitzvot are broken up. Okay, but we're getting ahead of ourselves, so let's get back to the text. And Adam was at his leisure in the Garden of Eden like one of the ministering angels. The Radal explains the verse in 2:15. Now the Lord God took man and he placed him. It didn't say he put him. It says vayanichehu, leisure, right? Vayanichehu comes from the word Noach. He placed him in the Garden of Eden to work it and to guard it. Meaning he put him in the garden to relax. Noach means rest. Noach in modern day Hebrew also means comfort, comfortable. So vayanichehu, God placed him, comes from the word Noach. It means rest, meaning there is no laborious work involved in the Garden of Eden. To the contrary, chill, kick back, enjoy the fruit. And as for one of the, it was called like one of the ministering angels. Well, that's where we get one of the secret society's favorite verses, Genesis 3:22, as in Order 3:22, aka Skull and Bones. If you're not familiar, Google this and this will pop up. Why are they so in love with Genesis 3:22? 322 is their number. What does Genesis 3:22 say? Now the Lord God said, behold, man has become like one of us. When there's an obsession with immortality, regardless of the fallen state, you see, they are all about knowledge. They worship knowledge. The serpent gave them, I'm getting ahead, but just so you know, the serpent gave them knowledge. Therefore, the serpent is the good guy. God, who trapped the man in the Garden of Eden, is the bad guy. This is how they think. So they worship this. And yes, they know Torah better than you. Which is also why they are obsessed with immortality. But that also comes with a warning. If we live forever in this fallen state, there is no real forever by default. Time's almost up anyway. What do you think is happening then? But you see the parallel as out of the text that says that Adam was walking about like the ministering angels, as this is taken from Genesis 3:22. The Holy One, blessed be He, said, I am alone in my world, and this one, Adam, also is alone in his world, meaning there's no one like him. He wasn't alone. There are other beings over there, right, so to speak. But the beings that you're thinking of are not the beings that we have to that they had there, which is not the beings that we have today. So the text continues, there is no propagation before me, and this one, Adam, has no propagation in his life. God was alone, and mini God was alone. But what works for God does not work for man. The very definition of God is unity, oneness. God has many names, and yet he is not defined by any of them. It's all one, and even that is not God. You cannot even begin to understand the concept of God, but you can get closer than most people through the Torah. There isn't anything in all of existence that is not God, therefore everything is one by default. Did you understand that? I'm going to read this again, okay? There isn't anything in all of existence that is not God. Everything is God. Good, bad, ugly, everything is God. It's all one. It all started from one dot. Without time and space, everything. Everything you see and feel and hear, all the history of the world, what was, what is, what will be, it was all one dot. The beginning and the end were there together. The sin, boom, here's time. That's what happened. Okay. But one must never mistake man for God. Ever. As our text says, hereafter all the creatures, meaning all of creation, will say, since there was no propagation in his life, it is he who has created us. How easily people and creatures or whatever are fooled to think that man is God. It's a shame. God told all the fish and the birds and the beasts, go ahead, pulvu milu et haaretz, procreate, make babies, lots and lots of them. As it is when he made man, all of creation, as it was when he made man, all of creation bowed down to him because they believed that he was God, that he was their creator. When Adam immediately said, whoa, no, do not bow down to me, okay? He immediately set them straight, which is what any common knowledge person should do, as they followed him to give credence and honor to the one and only God, to the one true God. We discussed this already. But the animals were not stupid. They had intelligence. This is not like the animals we know today. There was communication, okay? In different ways. Adam in the Garden of Eden was not a physical being. Not at all. There was nothing to touch. As it said in Genesis 3:1, now the serpent was cunning more than the beasts of the field. Meaning the beasts of the field were cunning. They understood, they acknowledged there was communication. But the serpent was even more so than all of them. If it's more than, that means that they too were cunning. Okay, yeah, I wrote that. All right. So, again, God did not want creation to mistake man as God, and yet, right? Go figure. But anyway, that is why it is said, and the Lord God said, it is not good that man is alone. I shall make him a helpmate opposite him. It is not good for creation that man is alone, because if creation worships man, everyone is done. So today, only part of creation worships man. A man or whatever. So they'll be done. Well, what are you going to do, right? This is from the very beginning. Go back to Genesis for everything. So it's an interesting take, right? It's not good for man to be alone, not necessarily for man, but man obviously by default, but the main reason is for all of creation. But rather say lenegdo, straight up, to oppose him. So not kenegdo, not opposite him, but rather to oppose him. This is self-explanatory. If he merits it, she will assist him, and if not, she will be against him to fight him. Now, the word used in Hebrew is lehilachem, literally means go to war. Milchama, ki tetzeh milchama, when you go out to war. The woman, if he does not merit it, the woman will go to war with him, and she will win. Likely every time. Think of it like this. The woman is an extension of man. With Adam, it was in the physical sense, right? As an actual piece of him was taken to create his helper. But in our world, our wives are not a physical piece of us, but rather our spiritual connection to the completion of Adam, meaning man and woman, male and female. Male and female are called Adam. Women are way more spiritual than men. We've already learned this, right? And in the marriage, that connection should actually be utilized. The woman's got to utilize that connection to the higher ups to benefit the marriage, to benefit everyone. This is why men have way more commandments than women do. Many more. Plus, there's also anything that is time constraint, women don't have to do it because women have more important things to do for them. There are things that women must do that men can't do, and vice versa. Everyone's got their own thing. So anyone says men and women are equal and they can do everything, no, they can't. By default, according to the Word of God. And if it's not me saying it, I'm saying it. Where'd I get it from? So we do physical commands. Why do we do? What are the purpose of the mitzvot? Fallen state, God said, okay, you're here, I need you to get here, right? How are we going to get up there? If you really, really concentrate hard, if you really will it, no. Here's the commands. Behold, the Torah and all the commandments in it, written and oral law is one, obviously. The written law cannot be extrapolated without the oral law. The oral law is the manual of the written law. How do I use this? What do I do with this? Oh. Makes perfect sense, and we can see it throughout the Torah. So we do physical commands in order to elevate ourselves spiritually. Women who are already elevated do not have to do these commands because they're already there. If a woman's here and a man is here, when the man does what he needs to do, the mitzvot, he starts elevating himself spiritually where the woman is already at. So the woman is the one who draws the blessings and abundance into the home. That is on the woman. And this manifests through her husband's physical work. If you want parnasa, the husband goes to work while the woman does everything that the woman needs to do. And she draws the parnasa, and that the parnasa is the sustenance, the livelihood. And that manifests through the physical labor that the husband does. They work as a team. This is how it works. So again, if all is well, not only on his front, but on hers as well, there will be abundance in abundance and growth and expansion and all the good stuff that God promised Abraham and Sarah. Check out their lives and see how they were blessed. And they did everything right. But if not, what do we say in the last class? If you remove the yud and the hey from ish, man, and isha, you get ish, fire. That is that's what a misaligned union will look like. Fire consumes, burns, don't even go there. Okay, so it's not only bad for that couple, that husband and wife, but everybody they come into contact with, even on a personal and separate level, they will also be negatively affected so long as they are bound spiritually. Again, there's always divorce, you separate, you give a get, that's why you sign contracts. According to God, there's a ketubah, there's the union, and then within the union, there's also a clause. If you decide to break up this union, you have to pay this and this amount, and then you guys, you go your separate ways, right? And so then you're no longer spiritually bound. We continue. The bottom line is this: it can either be the greatest thing or the absolute worst. When the earth heard this expression, thereupon it trembled and quaked, crying before its creator. Said, Sovereign of the worlds, I have not the power to feed the flock, or rather sheep, of man. When the earth shakes and quakes, trouble is afoot. You should know this, right? These are warning signs. All the bad stuff, natural disasters, very much from Elohim, who is the numerical value of nature in Hebrew. What the earth meant here, what the earth said, is not that man alone would be a problem, but the fact that man would rule over the behemot and the chayot. That already would be a problem. For instance, when Jacob left Lavan, he had 6 million sheep. Just 6 million sheep, okay? Not to mention goats and bulls and cows and donkeys and mules and horses, and I'm sure a bunch of different kinds of birds, okay? 6 million sheep. Can you imagine what 6 million sheep would do to like a beautiful green mountain range? It would turn it brown in an hour. Okay? It would be, if you let 6 million sheep just graze the land all the time and they always eat, right? As long as there's food, they're going to eat it. You would turn any green pasture to a barren wasteland because they would eat it up from the roots. These animals, right, yeah, they'll eat everything from the root. Okay, so if this would be the case, the earth would be correct in her claim saying, I have not the power to feed the flock of man, the sheep of man, as they would be eaten quicker than they would have a chance to grow. Makes sense. So the Holy One, blessed be He, replied, I and you will together feed the flock or the sheep of man. Meaning not only the flock or sheep of man, but remember there's more animals than there are human beings, right? Human being owns flocks. Therefore, that's a lot to cover. So by extension of man, okay, they agreed to divide the task between themselves. The night was for the Holy One, blessed be He, and the day was appropriated to the earth. As is written in Psalms 42:9, by day may the Lord command His kindness, and at night may His resting place be with me, a prayer to the God of my life. God just cut the earth's workload by 50%. That's a great deal right there. If you're confused, wait for it. What did the Holy One, blessed be He, do? Here we go. He created the sleep of life, Shenat Chaim, so that man lies down and sleeps, while He sustains him and heals him and gives him life and repose, as it is said in Job 3:12, for now I would be lying tranquilly, I would sleep, then it would be restful for me. Do you see this? You understand? Just the concept of sleep. God thought of this and said, this is what needs to happen. Brilliant. Otherwise, we wouldn't need beds now, would we? Right? We'd be like vampires running around all the time. Okay, so what is the sleep of life? We're going to break this down. What is the sleep of life? If God didn't make it so, there would be no such thing as sleep. Perhaps our lifespans would be significantly shortened, even more so, since we would be burnt out very, very quickly. It's like the moment Anarina and I light Shabbos candles, we collapse. It's just like making it to Shabbat, getting through the week. I don't know what's going on, but it's like time is moving faster yet slower simultaneously. It's very weird. Anyway, once we get to Shabbat, we light the Shabbos candles, Shabbat Shalom, we're like, we cannot, it's hard to move after that because we're so exhausted from the week. But you can't afford just to sit. In fact, you don't even think about it until actually Shabbat. Well, everything's done. So within a daily cycle, we have to go to sleep. And this sleep, why is it Shnat Chaim, the sleep of life? It rejuvenates us. It heals us and gives us the strength to face the next day. However, sleep, and particularly deep sleep, which is called dormita, which we discussed a while back, I forgot which class, dormant, right? Dormita, this is where it comes from. There's that the Marvel villain, right, who comes in the dreams, is kind of Dormammu. See, where do they get all these things from? This is like from the Hebrew. So when you sleep a deep sleep, you actually experience 1/60th of death. It's like when you're awake right now, you experience 1/60th of the world to come. So we have no idea. So what do we see within everything that I just said? Life and death, which corresponds to life and death, the tree of knowledge of good and evil. Remember, since we were born in this mortal body, we were born mortal. We're mortal. In this fallen world, we are already by default eating from the tree of knowledge of good and evil. That is the reality we live in. This whole world is of good and evil. There's good and evil in everything, like we said, even Torah, or rather, especially Torah. Why? Because if you use Torah wisely, correctly, properly, that is life. If you misuse it in any way, shape, or form, that's death. And that comes from the tree of knowledge of good and evil. So this deep sleep that God created for mankind was in a sense, it was a more relaxed version of what we see in Genesis 2:21. And the Lord God caused a deep sleep to fall upon man, and he slept, and he took one of his sides, and he closed the flesh in its place. The woman was a product of this deep sleep. Hear me? Deep sleep, 1/60th of death, but also in a sense rejuvenating, 2 in 1. The woman was a product of this. Okay. Solomon writes in Proverbs 5. I'm going off script here. I mean, I'm on my script, but I'm going off the period. Anyway, just pay attention. Proverbs 5. My son, hearken to my wisdom, incline your ear to my understanding. To watch your thoughts and lips shall guard knowledge, for the lips of a strange woman drip honey. Kinofet titofna siftei zara, v'chalak mishemen cheka, and her palate is smoother than oil, but her end is as bitter as wormwood, as sharp as a two-edged sword, the one that bars the way from getting to the tree of life. Now listen, verse 5, her feet descend to death, her steps come near the grave. Lest you weigh the path of life, her paths have wandered off, and you should not know, meaning don't know where she went. And now, children, hearken to me, and do not turn away from the sayings of my mouth. This is a warning. Distance yourself from her, and do not draw near to the entrance of her house. Forget about going in her house and sitting down and having a cup of coffee. Do not draw near to the entrance of the house. You don't want to know what the house looks like. But Solomon also writes Proverbs 31, a woman of valor who can find? For her price is beyond pearls. Her husband relies on her, and he will lack no gain. He will, if her husband relies on her, he will lack no gain. She requites him with good and not with evil all the days of her life. It's 2 different women here. Her husband is known in the gates when he sits with the elders of the land. She foresees the ways of her household and does not eat bread of idleness. She Sophia halichot beita, meaning this is also a job of a Jewish woman in the Jewish home. She prepares the things for her husband to do the mitzvah. This is how she partakes in that very same mitzvah, right? Sophia halichot beita. What does the house need? She makes sure to take care of that before the need even arises. Woman of valor. Charm is false, and beauty is futile or vain. A God-fearing woman is to be praised. Give her of the fruit of her hands, and her deeds will praise her in the gates. I obviously cut pieces from it, but you get the idea. The woman could be good, or she could be evil. These are 2 different women in one. Whatever she chooses, whatever the woman chooses is up to her, but she is without a doubt the engine that drives the home and everything and everyone in it. Ladies, are you aware of your power and therefore your responsibility? You are the crown on your husband's head. The crown on the husband's head. So if the husband is the head, can't get higher than the head, I beg to differ. The crown on the husband's head. That is the wife. You are the very status of your husband. Okay? All right. To everyone else and also to God. Meaning between him and... Okay. You were created for the sake of... You're not going to like this, but listen. You were created for the sake of your husband. For the sake of creation, you hold all the power. The reason your husband was created was for creation to be. And yet, he needs you. So if you're not there, he falls, creation falls. Who holds the power? In the world today, right? Men are physically stronger. Sure. But who controls men? Okay. So really, who's got the power? As our sages say, it was in the merit of righteous women that Israel were redeemed from Egypt. And it will be in the merit of righteous women that we will be redeemed in the final redemption. Who has the power, really? The detour was very necessary, but let's continue. Now, as we just discussed, what is the sleep of life? So that man lies down and sleeps whilst he sustains him, meaning the body is being sustained without the sustenance of food, right? Right. And heals him. There's no better cure than sleep. We all know this. If we all got a flu or something, doesn't matter, all the cold medicine or whatever, all the remedies that we do, when your body all but shuts down your life support, that's when it starts to heal itself. Sleep is the best cure always and gives him life. While the man sleeps, the soul, the neshama, draws life from above. That's what happens. And repose. Just like we read Adon Olam last week, as man commits his spirit back to his creator every night in hopes to be restored in the morning. By doing this, we essentially give our lives to God every single day, or night specifically. And if or when we wake, since he restored our soul to our body, we are well rested. Ideally, we should be, right? This world is very, very different than the ideal, though. I am exhausted. Okay. We can also read this in Psalms 3:6. I lay down and slept. I awoke, for the Lord will support me. Exactly. The Holy One, blessed be He, supports man with or through the earth. We already discussed this, right? Water, vegetation, sustenance. So the whole thing was thought up all for man. Through the earth, giving it water, and it yields its fruit and food for all creatures. But regarding man's food, okay, so this is very interesting. What does it say in Genesis 3:17? In toil shall you eat of it all the days of your life. Beze'at apecha, by the sweat of your brow, you shall eat of it all the days of your life. Meaning, is there sustenance? Is there plenty? Do we have all the food brought to us in air-conditioned supermarkets? Yes. Okay. But what does this verse mean? It means that it may seem natural for plants and greenery to grow, just like it may seem natural for people to go to sleep. But you see, God commanded everything. And greenery to grow, and all of nature will be able to sustain itself. Man's food and sustenance has nothing to do with nature, though. This is what we have to understand. As each man gets his livelihood, his food, sustenance, and everything else directly from God, depending on whatever account he may hold. So just because the tree is going to produce food, it has nothing to do with that person. Whatever you have coming to you, just like every year, on Rosh Hashanah, it starts with Rosh Hashanah and it is sealed by Yom Kippur. Then it is decided exactly how much money you are going to make over the next year to the penny. To the penny. Which means if you lost whatever, everything, don't be sad. Don't even be angry. This was already decreed, if you will. You got exactly how much you needed to get. Exactly. And if something like that was taken away from you, you should actually rejoice, because it means that something terrible was supposed to come to you, but it didn't happen. And we already learned in the Torah that that if a person goes broke, for instance, it is instead of them dying. That's why Jacob gave Eliphaz all this stuff, says, take all my money, leave me for dead. That's what that means. If you leave someone broke, it's as if you killed them. Okay? So if someone goes through a complete, chapter 11, it's actually mercy, because their lives should have been gone. Now they have a chance to, start over. Okay. So while nature has a balance and all of creation will be fed, man is the only one who will have to work hard. And still, there are never any guarantees. By the sweat of your brow, you shall eat bread all the days of your life, right? Or toil of the ground by the sweat. Yeah. You get the thing. God said right there to man, you're going to have to work for your food. Okay. Now, does this seem harsh? Don't worry, we're not finished. The Holy One, blessed be He, had compassion. There we go. upon the first man, and in order that he should not feel any pain, he cast upon him the sleep of deep slumber. God knew this was coming, obviously, and he realized that man could not do this alone. He needs it's like an antenna or something, a connection, cable, I don't know. This is like what we said. The man is the machine, if you will, and the woman is connected to the power source. Better connected to the power source, okay? And he made him sleep whilst he took one of his bones from his side and flesh from his heart. So not only his ribs, but also his flesh, and from his heart. Although it only says bone in Genesis 2:22, and man said, "This time it is bone of my bones and flesh of my flesh." He does say flesh of my flesh. In other words, based on what Adam said, God took more than just the straight up rib. So like all of creation, it was Adam who named her Isha, right? This one shall be called Isha, woman, because this one was taken from Ish. And man said. So Adam named his wife, right? Just like he named all the other animals. Distinction, please. Okay, but the Radal says something very interesting. What was she first called? What is the original name of woman? Meaning, what did God refer to this concept, this woman, as? Remember, the name of something or someone, biblically speaking, is always incumbent upon their intended function. Okay, so a lot of times when you see people's names, not the main characters per se, sometimes, yes, but all the other side characters, that's not necessarily their real names, but their function, so we know. Like Ephron, who sold Abraham Marat HaMachpelah. Ephron comes from Afar, right? The dust of the earth. We gave a whole study about that, and so on. So, what did God name woman originally? And man named all the cattle and the fowl and the heavens and the beasts of the field, but for man he did not find a helpmate opposite him. What does the Hebrew say? Lo matzah, no, matzah, find, could not find, ezer kenegdo. The name of this creation that we know as woman originally was called Ezer. Straight up. As just like the name Eliezer, Eli, my God, Ezer is a helper. So her name was Ezer according to God, as written in the text. Vasa'a Ezer, and he, God, made her a helper, and he placed her opposite him, in front of him, but really she was placed beside him. You have to understand, beside him meaning she's equal to him in that sense, but when he woke up, she was the first thing that he saw. Okay, he imprinted on her, if you will. Now, this is beautiful. Immediately, Adam hugged and kissed her. Meaning, this was man's natural inclination towards his personal, by design, his mate, his helper, his wife. Do you see how far we have fallen, though, since then? Today, men would love to hug and kiss many women and vice versa, all due to the corruption after the deed. You have to understand, everything is corrupt. This is what a husband does to his own wife. But originally, the two were only ever one. That's why. And Adam said to her, "Blessed are you to God, Buchat LaHashem, for your bone is my bone, and it is right that you will be called Isha," woman, but again, Isha. And how would Adam know this, that it is right that she be called Isha? Only after he hugged and kissed her. He had never seen something that looks like him. You understand? And if you're confused by the fact, well, I thought you said that it was all spiritual and not physical, sure. Do you have any idea how many realities and dimensions are we discussing here? To keep it simple, let's not go nuts with this, okay? Because obviously that is just a spiritual manifestation of what would later on become the physical. So, okay. So only after he hugged her and he kissed her, he realized, whoa, You're kind of like me with a few different things over there, you know? He saw that she had his makeup unlike anything else in the universe. He was really, truly by himself until he no longer was. He may have seen the best part of himself standing opposite him, opposite yet beside him. Also, this is a hint at a betrothal, because underneath the chuppah, the wife doesn't stand opposite when she comes in. This is how it works. Okay, you'll in a lot of secular weddings, first the groom comes under the chuppah, right, under the canopy, the chuppah, and then the wife, the soon-to-be wife, the woman, she walks down the aisle. She is brought to him. In a lot of secular weddings, the husbands, for some reason, they leave the chuppah. You don't leave. Once you're up there, you stay there, okay? Your wife has to be brought to you, just like Eve was brought to Adam. Very important. She is now facing you. She circles him 7 times. Very relevant. Sheva bracha, the sfirot and everything. We won't get into it right now. And then where does she stand? Right next to him. They are as one. Okay, so this is a hint at a betrothal, which is exactly what happened here. Blessed are you to God, Bulcha'at LaHashem. Tell me if you see any parallels over here. Ruth, chapter 3, 8-11. And it came to pass at midnight, and the man quaked. This is Boaz, right? And the man, midnight, sleeping, man quaked and was taken around, and behold, a woman was lying at his feet. Who are you? Right? And that was Ruth, okay? And he said, who are you? And she said, I am Ruth, your handmaid, and you shall spread your skirt over your handmaid, for you are a near kinsman. How do you spread your skirt? It says, Amatech parasta knafecha, where it says in Zechariah that 10 men from the 70 tongues will grab onto the kanaf. The kanaf is a wing in modern day Hebrew, but it is also the kanaf. It is the corner of the talis, right? And so what do I do with my wife standing by the chuppah? I cover her with the talis. I got to put on a talis over there. And when she comes and when she's done circling, I cover the both of us with this thing, which is, she said, are you going to marry me or what? Right? And he said, may you be blessed of the Lord. Exactly the words that Adam said to Eve. He called her my daughter because he was older than her, but he didn't see her like that, obviously. Your latest act of kindness is greater than the first, meaning, wow. And again, Ruth was a convert, and she was more pious and more humble and more guarded and more aware than all the other girls of Judah over there. And he noticed. Not to follow the young men, whether poor or rich. You didn't run after the dudes like all the rest of the girls, right? And now, my daughter, do not fear. All that you say I will do for you, for the entire gate of my people know that you are a woman of valor. Ki eshet chayil at. You can see by the deeds. It's the deeds. It's how the person acts. You can also see if it's pretend or if it's for real. So you see the parallels here, right? Between Boaz and Ruth, between Adam and Eve. As long as he was alone, he was called Adam. We have discussed this in teachings past, that a man who is not married is considered incomplete, and therefore it is not man is not considered to be Adam. As it is said in Genesis 1:27, and God created man in his image. In the image of God, he created him. Male and female, he created them. So originally, we see that Adam was male and female, but that was the first time around. Separation, what's-her-face ran off and is causing havoc in the world. But in the second time, this time, and we'll see, this time as opposed to last time. Okay, Rabbi Joshua ben Karcha said, by the flesh, basar, and by the blood, dam, his name was Adam. Makes sense. But when woman, Isha, was constructed for him as Ezer, his name became Ish, and her name became Isha. He graduated from Adam to ish. Okay, so you want evolution? Here it is. Adam graduated from Adam to ish. Now, what does it mean to be an ish? Ish, we'll go, what does it mean to be a man? But not an ish as in, okay, you're carrying around male genitalia. What does it mean to be a man? Let us read Ethics of the Fathers, Mishnahs, Masechet Avot, or Pirkei Avot 2:5. That reads, he, Rabban Gamliel, used to say, a brute is not sin-fearing. Okay? Ein bul. Bul is like, I don't want to stereotype here, but basically, a brute. Okay, fine. A brute is not sin-fearing, nor is an ignorant person pious. Okay? Ignorant person is one who runs their mouth and they have no idea what they're talking about. Nor can a timid person learn, right? Velo habayshan lamed, very, very important. A timid person cannot, I'm ashamed, I'm embarrassed, I don't. Ask questions. You've been given permission. If this is your personality, break out of that, okay? That's not from God. Nor can an impatient person teach. I'm working on it. Just being real. Nor will someone who engages too much in business become wise. And here's the line. Ubemakom she'ein anashim hishtadel lihiot ish. And in a place where there are no men, strive to be a man. Right? Okay. And when can a man become an ish? Only once he has an isha. The word ish consists of 3 letters, aleph, yud, shin. And it can be separated into 2 words, aleph representing the aleph, the alpha, God, and yesh. What is yesh? Yesh means there is. Yesh li. Yesh li kos mayim. I have a glass of water. God there is, meaning there is God. Ish is there is God. Okay. To be an ish shows creation, that there is a God. What did the Holy One, blessed be He, do? He placed His name within them. The Yud Hey that we discussed before. This is what we have discussed already. If you remove the Yah, the Yud Hey, from their name, you get Esh, you get fire, and fire consumes all. But let's just read the text. It's pretty self-explanatory here. What did the Holy One do? What did the Holy One, blessed be He, do? He put His name, Yah, Yud Hey, between their names, saying, if they walk in my ways, what is my way? Shomrim mitzvotai, if they keep my commands, right? My statutes, and keep my commands, behold, my name is given to them. This can be removed. It's entirely free will. It's on them. It will deliver them from all distress. If they do not walk in my ways, remember the halicha, this is the walk in God's way. The halicha this is where we get halacha. Halacha and halicha, it's the same word. Halacha are the statutes and the commands. Behold, I will take away my name from their names, and they will become esh, fire, and fire consumes fire. As it is said in Job 31:12, Ki esh hi ad avadon tochal, uvechol tevuati tesharesh, for it is fire, it consumes, it says to destruction, okay? But what do we you heard Avadon, right? So again, you need the Hebrew for this because you lose it with the translation. If you don't read the Hebrew, you missed absolutely the severity of the verse. So what do we say? Ki esh hi ad avadon tachal, for it is fire that consumes everything to Avadon. Right? You recall we discussed Avadon? That's the one place from the 7 realms of hell, of Gehenom, that you do not come out from. In other words, the woman can take you all the way up or all the way down. Which is why, if you are a proper ish ve'isha, your place will be in the garden. But if you are not, Avadon is where you're going to end up. If you don't know what it means, Tamir, okay, so what does it really mean? What does it mean to be an ish? So let's read the characteristics real quick from the verse by Rabban Gamliel. Okay, let's seriously, and make notes of these things to make a conscious effort. Just the fact that you would, let's say, write it down and make that conscious effort, there's already a change in you. That is already tshuva, mind you. A brute is not sin-fearing. Okay, so first, you have to fear sin. How does one fear sin? You must know God's commands, right? And be terrified to transgress them. Before that, you must know that God gave these commands, right? Fear God. Fear his commands. What does it say in Kohelet, the end of Ecclesiastes, right? The end of Ecclesiastes. Second, nor is an arrogant person pious. So, what is be pious, which can only be achieved once you fear sin, right? Once you fear sin, you focus so much, I'm afraid to do that, so now you're staying away, what it says, Sumara stay away from bad and do good, right? But it starts with, okay, don't go here. First find out what not to do. Then you could figure out slowly what to do. Third, nor can a timid person learn. Very important. Okay, do not be timid. Try your hardest to break this. Ask questions, okay? If you're learning with me, there are no stupid questions. Send the questions, text them, email them, call me, whatever. But ask these questions in order to learn, even just to make sure. It's very important. You have to get out of your comfort zone for this. And this is the only way that you will learn, by asking questions, okay? You're never going to learn all these things on your own, especially if you don't come from a Jewish background, especially if Hebrew had nothing to do with your upbringing. Then there's no way. And as it is, even if you do come from an Orthodox upbringing like myself, and you speak Hebrew and read it fluently, I still have questions, and I still have to ask the right people. Okay? This is how it works. So everything is there. So again, the sages address this. They understand that there are people like this, and they're saying you must break this. This is your tikkun that you have to do. Because then, if you're timid, how will you know what not to do? How will you know what to do? You see? This, and then this is on you. So really, what's keeping you back? Nor can an impatient person teach. Be patient. Why am I saying, well, I'm not a teacher? Wait, hold on, okay? Now again, as far as the patience thing, I know I had a patience thing my whole life, but the more I'm teaching, the more by default I'm understanding that I must be patient. Why? Because maybe a lot of these questions that I'm telling you now to ask, they're like, no. So I have to educate myself. Plus my wife educates me too. So that's all good, right? So I got her. So anyway, it's all good. Okay, so you have to be patient. I'm talking to you. You're not a teacher? Wait, yes you are. You don't have to be literally sitting down in front of a camera or in front of people in order to be teaching. You teach by default your kids as well as your entire surroundings, whether you are aware of it or not. We are all teachers, okay? So, patience, because questions will be asked of you, and you are placed in those specific situations in order to answer them. And a lot of you, especially coming out of Christianity and the Messianics and all the other garbage, your past is now asking you questions. If you roll your eyes or if you dismiss it or if you get angry, and believe me, I know exactly where you're coming from, you're not being an ish, right? This is what we strive to get to. I'm talking about isha also. Same thing. There's ish and isha. So, please, this is why you were brought out, so you can compose yourself and then answer, because this is a chain. Just like someone prayed for you and answered your questions and maybe helped you come along, you can do the same for others. That's why this was done for you. It's pay it forward, so don't forget. Nor will someone who engages too much in business become wise. Fifth. So, money is a great thing to have, no doubt, okay? Of course, if it is used responsibly. But we are not here on this earth to make money. God will bless people with money, and then you got to see what they do with it, right? But we are here to acquire wisdom, and that is something that money cannot buy. Because you can have the wealthiest people in the world, and they don't have any one of these characteristics. They're not God-fearing. They're completely ignorant, okay? They could keep to themselves, so it's in the same category of timid. You know, you got a lot of these tech billionaires, right? And then, impatient with everyone. Oh, by the way, don't be impatient with yourself either. That's a very important one that we forget because we're always hardest on ourselves. So, and the final and make or break factor. You could have all these qualities about you, but if you don't use them, okay? If you don't use them and step up when you receive the call, because this sums it all up, right? Which is why we conclude with Ubamakom she'ein anashim hishtadel liot ish. In a place where there are no men, okay? Your average everyday scenario in 2022. Strive to be a man. In a place where no one carries these positive characteristics, step up. You be that guy, okay? It's very important. Now remember, this is Adam's second wife, which is why he said in Genesis 2:23, as we discussed, this time it is bone of my bone and flesh of my flesh. Why this time? Because last time, when they were created as one, what's-her-face wanted her independence. But this time, when they are separate, it is a choice to become one. You see? That's why we weren't created with our spouses in one body. Okay? Free will. Always was. And speaking of what's-her-face, when we read earlier in Proverbs 5, this is who Solomon is speaking of. He's telling you, don't emulate her because she will draw you. Okay? She is literally worse than Satan himself, than the devil himself. He is her lapdog, okay, compared to her. So listen again now that you know who we're speaking of. For the lips of a strange woman, siftei zara, drip honey. And her palate is smoother than oil. Tell me if you've met this one. I've met several of them. But her end is as bitter as wormwood, as sharp as a two-edged sword. Her feet descend to death. And eventually she'll step on you too. Her steps come near the grave, lest you weigh the path of her life. Her paths have wandered off, and you should not know. Don't follow. This is the Isha Zara. This is the foreign woman who will, in Isha, there's a title of Isha. Isha, oh good, Isha Zara, foreign. This is the polar opposite of everything that is good in a woman. Foreign woman who will entice you, and you cannot, do not fool yourself, you cannot stand up to her. There's nothing you can do. And every single person who ever dared just to look at her fell and failed miserably. She is the terror of men and the mother of the Erev Rav. Remember our Erev Rav class? That's the mother. That's the queen mother. Okay, and no, we're not saying her name, don't you dare. And please don't write it down, for goodness sakes. I don't even write it down. I literally write what's-her-face, okay? And now, sons, hearken to me, and do not turn away from the sayings of my mouth. Distance your way from her, and do not draw near to the entrance of her house. That's a warning right there. You don't even need to enter her house. You just need to get close enough to potentially look in. And then this Isha Zara, this foreign woman, she will already have you. And make no mistake, in the best case scenario, it will cost you your life. In the worst case, your soul will be lost. Avadon. And now if you're thinking, how could she be called Isha Zara, foreign woman, as there is a Ya in her name? Well, what happens when we remove God from her, when we remove that, right? Then you have Esh Zara, Isha Zara, Esh Zara, foreign fire. Where have we seen foreign fire before? That's right, Nadab and Abihu, Leviticus 10:1. I should know my bar mitzvah parsha. And Aaron's sons, Nadab and Abihu, each took his pan, put fire in them, and placed incense upon it. And they brought before the Lord foreign fire. See, first it says fire, then it says foreign fire, which he had not commanded them. Vaitnu bahen esh. Why didn't it say Vaitnu bahen esh zara? Why didn't it say they put foreign fire in them the first time? because these are two completely different things. One is actual fire, and the other is esh zara, which he did not command them. If he did, it would be isha, but now it's esh zara. Nadab and Abihu, as we have learned, were on the highest level of purity at that point. After 7 complete days of focus and concentration within the Mishkan, they were on such a high level that they were perfect tzaddikim. As a result, once again, we're talking about the Shekhinah coming down into the Mishkan, dwelling within them in those 7 days before. The 7 days before, they were just purifying everything, every thought that they had. They were perfect tzaddikim. This is why afterwards Moses said, Zeh hadavar asher diber Hashem. This is the thing that God told me on Mount Sinai. Bekrovai kadesh v'al pnei kol ha'am echabed v'idom Aaron. Bekrovai kadesh, I will be hallowed by those closest to me. Moses said, I thought Aaron, he's talking to his brother, I thought you and me were closest to God, but wow. And I will have my glory up before all the people. In other words, they were greater tzaddikim at that moment than even Moshe and Aaron because of this. So, because they were on such that high level, as a result, they wished to bring the redemption right then and there. And the best way to do it would be to remove evil from the world, no? Right? When they were on Mount Sinai, receiving the Torah, death was suspended. All the evil spirits, everything. Evil was just in a freeze mode. Moses had to come down, bring the first tablets, no golden calf, and then boom, everything negative, if you will, in this world is gone. They wanted to do away with it right then and there. They believed that they could with the level that God was bestowing upon them. But since the Erev Rav caused Israel to sin with the golden calf, if they remove the mother, the queen, then they all fall, right? But be warned, distance your way from her and do not draw near the entrance of her house. They got too close. And as a result, these perfect, holy, righteous, and pure tzaddikim, and a fire went forth from before the Lord and consumed them, and they died before the Lord. Best case scenario, you lose your life. Their intentions were good, their intentions were pure, but they never stood a chance. If their intentions were anything but good, then they would not have been taken out in the manner that they would have. God said, I will be hallowed because of them. And indeed they were. Indeed he was, And so the woman, the Isha, can either be what Sarah was to Abraham, Rivka to Isaac, and Leah and Rachel to Jacob, or like hell who hath no fury, like this woman who scorns. Like I said, I have in my life encountered several of her emulators who possess that spirit. And let me tell you, you don't know it at first. The moment you realize who you're dealing with, just let everything go and run. I'm telling you firsthand, okay? And if you have to let your entire world and life burn behind you to get away, do it. It's worth it, okay? You can always start again, but just let everything go. Take nothing, and I mean nothing that has to do with any of that. Not a physical thing, nothing. Let it all go. The Holy One, blessed be He, made 10 wedding canopies, chupot, right? Chuppah, wedding canopies, for Adam in the Garden of Eden. Now, where do we get 10 chupot from? As we know, the number of blessings, as well as the number of days of the celebration that the festivities must go on, is 7. There's sheva brachot. And you party for 7 days every day, right? After the wedding, that's 1. The bride and groom go to a different house or to a different place or gathering every night for 6 days after that. So the wedding is the first bracha, and then afterwards everyone. So they can have a proper celebration and complete these blessings that are said under the chuppah at the wedding itself. So a man really only has 1 chuppah, 7 blessings. You start by saying the 7 blessings there, and then you go on, you say these 7 blessings in 7 different places. 7 times 7, right? So that's 49. See? 49's feel it. Okay, so you also need a minyan at this place. You can't just go with like 2 or 3 or 4 people. You need 10 men to say amen, and it also is part of the blessing afterwards, Birkat HaMazon. So I'm sure we've gone through these blessings before, but now you're going to see how relevant this is to Adam and Eve and the Garden of Eden, taking us from the creation of man in the creation of man to the Garden of Eden until the final redemption in Jerusalem. Okay, check this out. Here are the blessings. Number 1, blessed are you, Lord, our God, King of the universe, who creates the fruit of the vine. Boreh pri hagafen. You start always on the wine. That will be the fruit of the tree of knowledge of good and evil. That's right. 2, blessed are you, Lord God, King of the universe, who created all things for his glory. 6 days of creation, all for the glory of God, including man and woman. 3, blessed are you, Lord, our God, King of the universe, creator of man. 4, blessed are you, Lord God, our King, King of the universe, who created man in his image. In the image of his likeness he fashioned him, his form, and prepared for him, for his own self, an everlasting edifice. That's the woman. Blessed are you, Lord, creator of man. 5, may the barren one, this is Jerusalem, rejoice and be happy at the ingathering of her children to her midst in joy. Blessed are you, Lord, who gladdens Zion with her children. 6, grant abundant joy to these loving friends, Re'im Ahuvim, loving friends, beloveds, as you bestowed gladness upon your created being in the Garden of Eden, Adam and Eve, right? In the Garden of Eden of old, blessed are you, Lord, who gladdens the groom and the bride. Mesameach chatan v'kala. Adam and Eve were the bride and groom. The groom and bride. 7, blessed are you, Lord our God, King of the universe, who created joy and happiness, groom and bride, gladness, jubilation, cheer and delight, love, friendship, harmony, and fellowship. All this can be found within that couple. Lord our God, let there speedily be heard in the cities of Judah and in the streets of Jerusalem, bechutzot Yerushalayim, kol sason vekol simcha, kol chatan vekol chatla, the sound of joy and the sound of happiness, the sound of a groom and the sound of a bride, the sound of exaltation of grooms from under their chuppah, and youths from their joyous banquets. Blessed are you, Lord, who gladdens the groom with the bride. First one is gladdens the groom and the bride. Now is the groom with the bride. Here's the yichud. You see how beautiful this is? This is what we say at weddings. And it goes back from the Garden of Eden to the final redemption. Beautiful. This, of course, is speaking of God, though, the groom, uniting with his long-lost bride, which is the Shekhinah, but the Shekhinah resides upon every Jew. This is why all the Jews have to come to Israel together, and then the Shekhinah will become one, and once everyone is here, then every eye shall witness the return of God's glory to Zion. This is how that goes. Okay, so this is the final redemption. So we said 10, right? So now you know. So we counted 7. Where are the missing 3? Our sages say that the final 3 are hidden within the 7 blessings, within the 7th blessing, which will only be revealed in the final redemption. Nevertheless, nowadays, 1 wedding, 1 chuppah, 7 blessings, as we discussed. Every chuppah, that's a marriage. So Adam had 10. Let's see. Back to our text now. They were all made of precious stones, pearls, and gold. It is not a fact that only 1 wedding canopy is made for every bridegroom. Oh, is it not a fact that, our sages are asking, is it not a fact that only 1 wedding canopy is made for every bridegroom? Yes. Whilst 3 wedding canopies are made for a king. Did you know that? But Adam was not like other men. Now was he? He was the first man created. He wasn't born, but formed and created in the image and likeness of God. But in order to bestow special honor upon the first man, the Holy One, blessed be He, made 10 wedding canopies, in the Garden of Eden, as it is said in Ezekiel 28:13, in Eden, the garden of God, you were ever precious stone. In Eden, the garden of God. It's backwards in English. Okay. Be'eden gan Elohim haita. Kol even yakara misukatcha od. Okay, and then it goes into the stones. In Eden, the garden of your God, you were. Every precious stone was set in your covering, canopy, chuppah, ruby, topaz, diamond, chrysolite, onyx, and jasper, sapphire, carbuncle, okay, and crystal and gold. Okay, these are the 10 chuppot. In other words, Ezekiel refers to them. Now wait, it gets better and weirder. And the angels were, this is what it says, and the angels were playing the drums and dancing as females, as it is said in the same verse, the work of your drums, also in Ezekiel, the work of your drums and your orifices is in you. On the day of your creation, they were established. The work of your drums. The Radal says, drumming like women and dancing like young maidens. This is what the ministering angels were doing in the Garden of Eden at the union of Adam and Eve. So look, that's really all I have on that. Let's just awkwardly move on, okay? Okay. On the day the first man was created, thank you. On the day the first man was created, as it is said in the same verse, on the day of your creation, they were established, because it was all on the same day, obviously within a few hours. But again, the hour time was not infused yet. So, okay. The Holy One, blessed be He, said to the ministering angels, come, let us render loving service to the first man and to his helper, for upon the attribute of the service of loving kindness the world rests. So what is the attribute of loving kindness? This is chesed. This is mercy. But now we understand these series of events in Ezekiel 28 that, although it refers to the king of Tyre, clearly he's speaking of Adam. I mean, clearly, right? Okay. The Holy One, blessed be He, said, more beloved is the service of loving kindness, of chesed, and gmilut chasadim, then the sacrifices and burnt offerings which Israel will bring in the future upon the altar before me, as it is said in Hosea 6:6, for I desire loving kindness, ki chesed chafatzti velo zavach, and not sacrifices, and knowledge of God more than burnt offerings. V'dat Elohim me'olot. The ministering angels were walking before him like it says like friends, but it says in the Hebrew shoshvanin, who guard the wedding canopies, as it is said, Psalms 91:11, for He will command His angels on your behalf to guard you on all your ways, wherever you go. Now, what is the word shoshvan? This is what you call the best man, okay? Or the groomsman, right? Shoshvan, one, plural, right? So there's the best man. The job of the best man, I know, in Judaism, it's a serious job, because his job is to protect the groom with his life. It's like, do you take this upon yourself? Okay, fine. He's the bodyguard for 24 hours leading up to the wedding itself. This is his sole focus. The ministering angels specifically were Michael and Gabriel, and what I can think of, I can't think of a better, pair to watch my back than these guys, right? The guys, the angels, all due respect. This also goes with the bride as well. She's also got her people, got to protect her. The reason why this is so important is because if a man and woman from Israel have Shomrei Torah mitzvot, keep the Torah and mitzvot properly, and they have a proper kosher wedding, and are going to keep a proper kosher home. When I say kosher, meaning living according to the Torah, okay? When I say everything's kosher here, you know what that means. It doesn't mean, okay, does it have an OU? That's not what I'm talking about. Meaning they live according to the Torah, then they are a force of good to be reckoned with. And we said before, a man is not complete until he unites spiritually and then physically with his woman. When all this is done right, the kind of tikkunim, rectifications they can make in the world, in all the worlds, are absolutely incredible, which is why all the dark forces are out to get them before this union happens. It's usually the before thing that is the most crucial time, right? As we've learned before, it says, right as a man is about to enter into the gates of Kedusha, the gates of holiness, every dark force will pounce on him and do everything in their power that he shouldn't enter. And it says he will most likely, you can't stand up to them. The whole thing is you get up and go again and go again and go again and never stop. Okay, so these dark forces don't need to do a thing when it comes to the ways of the nations. For example, bachelor and bachelorette parties, right? And all that they entail. It's like, we don't have to worry about those two. I'll help you book your rooms in Vegas. These mezikin, these dark forces, pestilence, will do everything in order to make that connection, meaning between the two who will not live according to God, whether they're Jews or not, even in an immoral way. Because if that's how you start out, sure, you plan that bachelor party, right? All you're going to do is bring more darkness into the world. That's it. So of course they want these things to happen. Do you know how many, very sad, marriages here in Israel today amongst Jews who couldn't care less about anything, not kosher lifestyle, in any way, shape, or form, transgressing laws that are actually written in the 5 books of Moses, doing eternal damage to their souls, not to mention the rest of Israel. That's why I also kind of take it personally. Free choice, sure, but in the end, everybody's got to pick up that slack, if you will. So, therefore, protecting the bride and groom is of the utmost importance. Now, the verse right before it in Psalms 91:10, we read 91:11. Here's what 91:10 says. No harm will befall you, nor will a plague draw near to your tent. Lo te'une elecha ra'a, right? Ra is bad. Ra'a is badness, evil, but also ra'a is the feminine version of ra in the feminine tense. Venega, plague, pestilence, lo yikrav be'ohalecha, near your tent. Now, ohalecha, your tent, this is your wife, okay? And she is comparable to the Shekhinah. We can see this from Abraham. Just giving you an example. It doesn't say this in the thing, but so you know. Genesis 12:8. And he moved from there to the mountain. This is Abraham. And he moved from there to the mountain east of Bethel, and he pitched his tent. Now, what does it say in the Hebrew? Vayatek misham hahara mikedem lebeit el vayat ohalo. Ohalo, though, is spelt without punctuation, and it is read ohala. Ohala, meaning her tent, referring to her, Sarah, or the other one. In this case, we know it's Sarah. Meaning, your wife's needs come before you. So again, no harm will befall you, nor will a plague draw near to your tent, your wife, for he will command his angels on your behalf to guard you in all your ways. Wherever you go, if you live proper, wherever you go, whatever it is that you do, you have Michael and Gabriel guarding. Good stuff. Rest easy. We continue from the text. Your ways are the ways of bridegrooms. Now, this is amazing what the Radal references here. Okay, check this out. Proverbs 3, 5, and 6. We should know this by heart. So trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. Do not rely on your own understanding. Know him in all your ways, bechol drachecha da'ehu, and he will straighten your paths. Vehu yeyasher orchotecha. It doesn't even say drachecha. It says orchotecha. What does this mean? Your paths are made straight. But this is the woman that God has given you. The orchotecha, that is your wife. And if you trust him and constantly seek him, wherever you go, in whatever you do, the way, your way, his way. Okay, well, originally his way, obviously. Your way, by default, is crooked if you go your way. But if you trust him, that crooked way that you by default chose will become straight. This means that this is the path of the just, if you will, right? The Ramchal's book also. This way, this is the gift of Isha that God has given you. If you trust God with all your heart, it's all about your wife. This is why it says in our texts, the way, derech or ochotecha here means only the way of the bridegrooms. The Holy One, blessed be He, was like a cantor, a chazan. What is the custom observed by a cantor? He stands and blesses the bride in the midst of her wedding chamber. But it's not the chamber, it's the chuppah. The chamber it's the husband and wife. But that's what the chazan does. It's a chazan, it's a rabbi. He stands underneath and he blesses. He says, he's the MC. Okay. Likewise, the Holy One, blessed be He, stood and blessed Adam and his ezer, as it is said, and God blessed them. Genesis 1:28. Adam, and here this also says in Pirkei Rabbi Eliezer, Adam is no longer him, but a them. As we can see in Genesis 2:24, therefore a man shall leave his father and his mother and cleave to his wife, and they shall become one flesh. And that's our class for today. So I hope y'all learned something. Stay tuned next week. Next week we are discussing Satan and the serpent. What's up with that? So as always, thank you so much for joining me. Have a wonderful rest of the week and have a Shabbat Shalom. Bye now.